We've got already. Nice to meet you. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you too. Great. So, welcome everybody who is watching this live. So, today I'm happy to bring in Claudia. Claudia came already on my YouTube channel to speak before. So, I thought, what about a great way to start this by mentioning something I just read actually, because it's linked to the topic. And I thought it was interesting. So, a survey that was done, I think it's actually in Switzerland. I looked, I believe it was in Switzerland, about women not being as talkative during leadership meetings as men were. So the question that was asked was, on a scale 1 to 10, how psychologically safe do you feel within your leadership team? So most men rated themselves about 7 to 9, which is quite high, and women were 30% lower. So I thought that was interesting, and I thought, what a great way to open up discussion about women rating themselves actually much lower. So
Yeah.
I actually shared my comment, and I'll share on the call today as well. But what about you, Claudia? What do you think is happening here?
First of all, well, thanks for having me. And secondly, great opening of this conversation. Yeah, this is what I hear from women very often. I'd like to be seen and like to be heard. So that also already indicates I don't really feel confident and safe where I am. I had a story recently from one of the women I'm working with, and she said, so I was in this leadership meeting and I suggested something, had an idea, and I mentioned this. And it seemed like it went over the head of the people. And she's the only woman in this round. 5-10 minutes later, a man made the same suggestion. Everybody turned around and said, "That's a great idea, wonderful." And so this is what can I do? Why am I not being seen? So I firmly believe that a lot of us women have not really learned to take our space and to speak up for ourselves. And there's quite a bit of background, or there's stuff going on underneath, right? As women, and yes, I'm aware that I'm stereotyping a bit here, and still this unfortunately is true for a lot of women. We grow up with the idea of being the good girl, you know,
Yeah.
and I even call it the good girl syndrome. So making an effort of pleasing everybody, of being polite, of being considerate, so uh, particularly when there is a mixed leadership team and we don't really understand how men work because they work differently, you know, and we apply this, we'll never get the space, we'll never take the space. And if we don't know as women how to create what I call the leadership presence, this is no surprise that women feel unsafe in this environment.
Yeah, it's an interesting opinion that you're sharing here. And I think also preparing women, and that's probably mixed, preparing women for it, mentoring, because as you said, there's a big history of, well, I'm doing what I'm told and I don't want to raise the voice and I don't want to say too much. And I'm afraid to touch on certain topics because these were no-go topics in my family or in my history. So there's definitely some preparation and some mentorship that needs to happen to help women go over this hump, so to say. And but I thought it was interesting. That means there's still little work to do to get there.
There's a lot of work to do. This is the surprising thing. I mean, I started out in a corporate career many moons back, like 30 plus years back, and I came into a leadership position very quickly. And so, a long time ago, when I had the possibility to look into how did the world work at that time. It was very male driven. Well, I was also in a male industry, I should say, where there's more men, in fact, than women in the IT industry. or at that point definitely has changed a bit, not majorly.
Yeah.
Anyway, if I take the situation that I found at that stage and compare it to it is nowadays, unfortunately, not an awful lot has changed. You could think that within 30 years, everything's different and we're more prepared. There's more also equality. And that's not the point, because this is somehow on the surface. What weighs far more is the socialization that we go through from generation to generation. And that has not changed majorly. And that creates these kind of results.
Yeah, there's what you see in the media, and of course, we hear a lot today about women founders, startup created by women, and women in leadership roles. But as you say, we have to be cautious about the marketing part of it and the reality part, and those are two different things.
Yeah, very much so. Also, when it comes to these women networks, I mean, there's lots and lots of activity in the market for women in business, for women in leadership positions, and I absolutely welcome this and appreciate that. There's a lot of good stuff happening out there. There's no doubt about it. The other part is that there's lots of talk about women supporting women, and again, from my own experience, I found that women are also often very competitive in the workplace towards other women. And again, there might be exceptions to this, and still this actual support within the own organization or outside of the organization is not really happening to that degree, at least not on such a deep level, where we can open up, where there's a safe space, where we can really talk about what we're facing, because there's still quite a lot of fear that this is being considered weak. When we eventually say, hey, I find that really challenging. This is really hard. And one of the things being combining a leadership role and family obligations,
Yeah, and I think that's, as I said, a good opening to our talk today, because that's what we're going to dig more into. So maybe you remind everybody, maybe some people haven't watched the other shows that we did together, a little bit about who you are and how did you get started with the program that you have right now? What led you to that?
Well, I've started out in the corporate business, as I just explained, and I was there for quite some time, and I completely pivoted my path about 5 years ago now. In between, I was running my own business and also in the IT area with some partners. So I have a lot of business background, which is very, very helpful with what I'm doing now. So I've eventually, and this is really the short version of the story, realized that I care more about people than IT and about growth. I've always been a personal development junkie, I should say, and eventually totally pivoted to becoming what I call a personal and executive leadership coach. So the name says it in a nutshell. I'm working with executives, I'm working with leaders, and I focus on personal leadership. What does that mean? It means leading ourselves. As leadership, per se, leadership starts here, goes outside, I'm leading other people. Personal leadership starts here and goes inside. So it's what's happening here. And I found that if this foundation is not there, all the outside leadership doesn't really work. So the outside leadership is a part of it. I'm always starting with self, though. So why did I get there? Again, it's about people being closer to my heart than IT. And why did I choose what I'm doing now, i.e. working with women? In fact, this was a year-long process, not just 1 year, years, I should say, like 2 to 3 years. I remember it was probably 3-4 years back. So not too long after I started, suddenly I had this epiphany. I'm going to work with women. So that was, I don't know where it was coming from. I believe it came somewhere from here. And then my brain kicked in and said, oh, Claudia, everybody's doing something for women now. This is a trend. This is just, popular right now. Why would you do that? You love working with men. You like men anyway. So why would you restrict yourself working with women? And so my brain overpowered this. And for a while, I worked with both genders. So mainly in the one-on-one area. And it was a lot of fun, and still is. And eventually, this thought came up again. And I allowed myself to look a bit closer. And again, to shorten the story here, I realized, first of all, I'm a woman, obviously. I have 2 children. I was in a leadership position and now leading my own business. So why not working with exactly these women? Because after all, whatever kind of issues there are, whatever kind of challenges, I went through. And these are the people I can offer a shortcut to a process that took me almost 2 decades. So, and there was the idea back in my brain. And I just mentioned one of the aspects that has become now really important for me in the program. The one-on-one work is fantastic. What is missing there, though, is a network of women who can support each other, who are in a very similar situation, and that often comes along with very similar challenges. And so this is why I decided to start a group program for women in leadership positions with children, and add the community as an element. So it's for years now, we've had a lot of online courses, right? Or we had, group workshops. What I've done now, I've combined both, so that I can be considerate towards women's time. That's an interesting factor, actually, time, and we might talk about that in a moment. So that it's accommodating their time that they really have, and still have this personal contact, right? So really creating not just a community, but creating something that is life, where people in fact talk to each other, talk with me, where we can solve problems on the go.
Wow, that's in a nutshell. That's a program for sure. So, what do you think at the moment is the biggest challenge that I always say women, but also men, because in a way, society at large includes everybody. I like to include everybody, and I think women's issues are also linked to men because it means that it's communication and how do you make it work, especially now we have dual careers, a lot of dual careers where both men and women want to advance. So what do you see as the biggest challenge now in 2022 in this whole scenario of everybody wanting to get ahead, and how does that impact family? And maybe it's too much in one question.
There is a slight differentiation between men and women, and some of the issues we all face, and some of the common issues that have arisen during the pandemic, and that which still continue to happen, and this is uncertainty. Now we're living in a pretty volatile environment and world. We can't really predict the future. We never could. We just thought we could. And the pandemic, and now the situation with the war in the Ukraine, they have shaken a lot of people. And so this long-term planning, I've got my goal here, this is where I'm going to be in 5 years, that might not be valid anymore. So uncertainty means less security and safety. Less security and less safety means potentially more stress on the emotional and mental side. And that's a lot. That's a lot to carry. So that is what goes on in the background. In the foreground, the biggest issue in our world now is time. This is what I hear from everybody, and I had lots and lots of conversations with people in the last few weeks, and that was one of my questions. So what's your biggest challenge? Time, getting everything coordinated. No, I'm running all the time. So I'm tired. I'm exhausted, right? So in a nutshell, I don't believe there's a lot of change towards the last years. It has just almost accelerated, or the process has accelerated. Too much to do, too little time. Too much information, too little clarity. No? Because if there's this environment of speed and information overload and uncertainty, I got to have something in place to deal with that, right? And so this, I guess that's it, probably in a nutshell. So what is lacking? A lot of people I find and I hear don't really enjoy their life anymore. It seems like a permanent hustle. It seems like they're functioning and not enjoying their life. Everything is planned. It's not even that people, regardless of if men or women, don't have any time to do anything outside of work. That's not the point. However, all the leisure activities are also planned into the calendar, and then they become obligations suddenly. Oh, I got to meet friend so and so. Oh, I got to do this. Oh, I got to do that. And so it's an endless to-do list, regardless of the activity.
Exactly. Yeah, you think about where are the times when, I know now it's very difficult to do this, when you would just call people and say, hey, what are you doing tonight? And just more, as you said yesterday, when I scheduled this live today, we just did it very spontaneously. And I think to some extent, it's also what makes life fun, is to just, things pop up and just say, why not? Let's go with the flow type of thing. And it's more enjoyable actually, because you're not there saying, okay, let's look at the to-do list and who do I need to contact and where do I need to start today. So sometimes having a little bit of unpredictability is also interesting. But I know some people in my circles, they're very uncomfortable with things not being planned. And in Switzerland, actually, people like planning and they like security and all that. So it's
Yeah, plans plans are not bad per se, right? Particularly if there's lots to do. I totally understand that. I was in the situation where I, like everybody, too much to do, too little time, and some planning helps. And I even, when I look at my desk here, I have a planner, so that's okay. I just plan differently now, and putting everything in a plan, and particularly doing it long term, is also a matter of trying to keep control over what's happening, because we like, as human beings, we like control. And if things are unplanned, it's like, oh, I got no control over it. And whereas this, I totally agree with you, can be fun. For some people, that's scary.
Yeah, and especially with everything crumbling under our feet with COVID, and now with the other stuff that's happening still in 2022, we need to hang on to something, right? We need to find that one thing that, oh, okay, that's safe, and I have that even if everything is crumbling. So there's always looking for, whether it's the job that we need to hang on to, or it's the family, or something that needs to be secure. So that's also a lot of pressure to always think about having this security and trying to juggle it with enjoying life. Um,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And without going into too much detail here, people are looking for safety and security in the wrong place. And this is what is what becomes their detriment. If we're looking for safety and security in the outside world, this is not controllable. Everything can crumble away, as you say. What's a bit further away, we have absolutely no control over. Even what's closer, though, even our family, even our job, we might make an attempt.
We can lose the job, that's for sure.
Exactly. So the accepting or realizing what we have control over and what not is one of the keys to reduce our stress levels.
So that's interesting. So it leads me to the question, are really women getting it all today? Because technically, we have access to a lot more things than we ever had in our history, I think, whether it's school, education, degrees, doing what we really want. So are we at a stage now, because you said earlier that we're still not there yet, and that's why I'm asking the question. So what about this? I'm a woman now in 2022. Where do we stand in achieving our dreams and having, I think most women would agree that at least especially when you're younger, your idea is, okay, you want the good relationship, the career that you want, the children, the house with the picket fence. For most people, that's the dream. So where do we stand on that dream? Are we able to have all that, or is it going to be we have to review our dream a little bit there?
This is what I call the superwoman phenomenon. This, as you said it quite rightly, we are being we believe that we can have it all, and that we also should do it all, right? As a woman, particularly when I have the education, hey, gotta have a career, also gotta have all these things you just listed. So now the big question, and do it well, and by the way, be super sexy and pretty and energetic on the way, right? So this is what I call the superwoman phenomenon, and the expectation is partly from the outside, and partly as women we've taken it on board, to fulfill these roles. Right now we have all the opportunities, and you know what? We gotta grasp them and take them, even if we're super exhausted at the end of the day. So now the question that I invite every woman to ask herself is, if you have a choice, and believe we have choices, why don't you go for the choice that's really yours? So now, in the forefront, this might sound like great career, great relationship, kids, house, etc., etc. This is, however, the picture that we've all grown up from, where society defines that is success. If you have all of that, that's success. And so we've taken this on board, and many of us just walk through that very unconsciously, because we believe that's ours. When we look a bit closer, because the thing is, while striving for all of that, we're burning out, we're exhausted, so something must be wrong here. How did we end up here? Look, running after all of that dream and not being happy. What's wrong? So we got to take a moment, or I invite women to take a moment and look at, is that really what I dream of? And maybe my personal individual dream is different. So now I know people, women in my circles, who have decided, you know what? No children for me. Clear, conscious choice. For whatever kind of reason, right? So they took this, they looked at the societal expectation, and particularly when it's younger women, like, let's say, end of their 20s, beginning of their 30s, everybody's asking, so when are you getting married? When are you going to have children? And when they then say, don't want children, oh, just wait for a few years, you will like children. And it's like, maybe not. So this is where the societal expectation comes through, right? We just assume because we have a uterus and ovaries, we got to have children. And no, we might not, because it might not be our truth. This is an important word, to get access to our truth. What is it? And there might be other women, and I also have those in my circles, who, after getting married, gave up on their career. I even have a woman there who basically really never went back to work. And also she's exposed to societal judgment. What? You have a great education. Why didn't you go back to work? It's questions, because there's this expectation. That's the path for you. And this is so great, isn't it? So why don't you go down this path? Everybody loves it. And it's just not true. So that's the first part, connecting with our own truth and really double checking, is that really my dream? And when it's my dream, or whatever the dream is, then looking into, what does that really mean for my life? You just talked about compromises. I personally don't like the word compromise, because I believe it's a lose-lose situation. Because I just simply don't get what I want, right? And then it's like, because I'm giving a part away. I got to compromise. Compromise meaning cut off something, That's a really unhappy situation. So the question now is, what is there if there's no compromise, right? Kind of the compromise between job and motherhood, or partnership, or whatever. Again, I invite everybody to look into what is really important in your life, right? When I find my truth, then to build up, what is really my vision for my life? And what does that mean? And to accept that vision is a long-term, I call it a North Star, my orientation, which might not mean that every day and year or week of my life I got to have an exact balance. What I mean by that, to become a bit more specific, so when I decide children are important in my life, and I have children, so now it's on me as woman, in this case probably also the partnership, the couple, to decide what is important now. Long term I might have the vision, I'm definitely going for my career in XYZ, or this is how I would like to feel in my career, and this might turn out to be XYZ, because it might change, as I've seen in my own life. And for a while I might realize, what, my body has just done an incredible job. I mean, I have 2 children, and I know what it means to bear a child and to give birth to a child, and to have these first few months in the life with a child. It turns you upside down, honestly. And to ignore this and to pretend that, oh, you know what, I can just go back to my career and everything. Some women might choose that, and for them it might be okay. Some other women might feel this is not okay for me, and why not have the choice then to say, you know what, I take a bit of time. So what I'm saying is that this is not a compromise, it's priorities. What do I prioritize when? So to look at life in a slightly different way, I could also decide, I have a young child, I have so much energy and so much ambition, and my body seems to work through very well with all the birth stuff, etc. I hire a nanny who's there for the child and go back to work, if that is aligned with me, right? And that is the most important word here. It's got to be aligned with the individual woman. There is no solution that fits everybody. And I can't tell a woman what's the right choice to make. this is what's so important. You got to find the answers here. Just got to know how to, if that makes sense.
And that's where people like yourself can help as well, to help how to be in touch with, because I think a lot of people are not in touch with themselves, and we tend to learn from what our parents did or what our circles did, and we think, oh, okay, that's just what I need to do. And I think unfortunately a lot of people are not in tune with their own needs, and just follow blindly whatever the word of the day is. And I think it makes a huge difference to know yourself very well and to know also what you liked. I know from a young age, I knew kids weren't for me. I just knew I didn't enjoy necessarily the whole being a mom type of thing. So it wasn't a difficult thing because I was in touch with myself. I knew it wasn't what I wanted, but I can imagine, and I see it with other women, is that they're not sure. They're really not sure. They're in between. One day they think yes, the other day they think, well, maybe not. And there's this whole it's a little bit wobbly. So that makes it, I think, more complicated, because you're always going to be saying, am I doing the right thing? Should I be working? Should I be having children, etc.? So it definitely makes it more complicated when you don't know yourself very well, and you need help there. You need help in finding out, uh, what could be your path, with somebody that
Yeah,
supports you. So
yeah,
definitely help.
absolutely. And I am very sure that you faced some of these things that I just talked about. When people asked you, so I'm sure you will want to have children sometime or eventually.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it takes also to know yourself, because people will almost make you doubt, like, oh,
Yeah.
but are you sure? And it's great to have kids. I know, I hear it still now. I hear it all the time. People say, oh, when you have children, it's great and they're so wonderful. And I couldn't see my life. Another thing I hear is, I couldn't see my life without kids, and that's the purpose of life. I also hear. So basically, so what about people who don't have kids? They don't have purpose. Then it's a little bit, yeah. There's really a big thing out there about passing on and all that, having kids. So I think a lot of people do it for the wrong reasons, unfortunately, because it's quite strong in our culture to be a parent and to have descent.
Absolutely. I mean, we can look at very different aspects here. I mean, generally, we're mammals, and
Yes.
our purpose is basically to
Reproduce.
procreate, and to make sure that our species does not get extinct. I don't believe we have to worry about that anytime soon. There's 8 billion of us. So, and we will take care of that anyway if we continue living the life we're living, quite honestly. Well, that could be another podcast altogether. Uh, yeah, I mean, when other people say these kind of things, they are in a way justifying their own life choices. And when you say we have children for the wrong reasons, I couldn't agree more. Again, this could fill in a whole podcast about why are we having children. And I'm throwing something out here. Most of us as parents, or if we have when we have the wish to have children, it's a selfish thing. It's really a selfish thing, as you say. This idea of creating another human being, and we can make a better version of it. We can give them all the love we have, etc., etc. So, I know I'm opening a can of worms here. It's parenthood can be great, and nothing against it. I've got 2 children, and still, yeah, it's got to be a choice, and not only parenthood, also all the other parts of life. And it takes guts, it takes courage to do that. And we might go against not only societal expectations, we might also go against expectations of people in our direct circle, family, friends, who tend to have a higher influence on us than the outside world. It all comes together, though, when it comes to giving us the imprint of how life is supposed to work. So what I one of the words I'm using generally for my own life and in my work is what I call radical responsibility. And for me, that means that we have the power and the possibility to take 100% responsibility for ourselves and for our choices. Yes, there is an outside world. Yes, there are other people. They're not there to determine my decisions, though. They might influence them, no doubt. They're not there to determine them. Now, getting this connection to self, and it comes along with creating the courage. That's the interesting part. As soon as we are really connected with, yeah, let's say it with the big words, who we are, with our truth, our self-confidence and our courage starts increasing automatically. I'm not saying it becomes easy suddenly. It's quite a step, particularly when we followed this path. I'm obedient, I'm following societal's path, and I'm doing it all, and I'm being this independent, strong woman who's doing it all, and I can do it all because, even if I realize I can't, and I actually don't enjoy it, I can't stop now, right? This is often the thought process behind, right? This, like, I have put myself into the situation and I can't change it. And this is what leads people to a burnout. It leads people to suddenly throw everything, onto the ground and say, "I'm leaving. I had enough." So that's, we can help ourselves by preventing that, and taking the steps beforehand to look for our own path.
But I'd be very curious, and maybe that's going to be the topic of another podcast. I know I like to talk about these topics. But even I think women who manage to, on the surface at least, to have achieved the great career and great marriage and children and everything, if you were to dig a little bit deeper, I'm sure that you would find out that not everything is perfect, even if it seems like it. When you get closer to them and you start listening and everything, you would realize that it can be 100% perfect, but it's perfection. I mean, can we get everything perfect? I mean, even if you try hard and you're someone who is goal oriented and you make the right choices, because as you said, it's about choice. But let's say from a young age, you make the right choices, you tend to know where you're going, you have a path, etc. And let's say nothing external happens, you still would think that, yeah, you met this great person and you think this is going to be the perfect match, but yet you realize, even though you're showing to everybody, yeah, we're the perfect match, you've seen that on media, those perfect couples, and then 2 years later, big divorce, big mess. And we have an example of that just finished recently with a big actor. So there's the surface of the perfect couple or perfect life, and then you realize everything is falling into crumbs. So again, I think that having it all, or trying to achieve it all, is a little bit of a, it's going to be a big dream and not necessarily 100% success. So I always like, the word I'm using is contentment, because having always wanting to have more, and I even asked that to my friends. I say, what else would you like? And the person would say, I want more. They can't really say what, but they just want more. And I think there's also this thing where we always want more. So we have a partner or a husband, but we would like to have maybe a bit more on whatever it is, or we have a good career, good job, but we would like to have the next level. And when we have the next level, we're still not satisfied. So I think it's part of being human. We're never fully satisfied. So that's why I like to use the word, and that's what I use on me too. Contentment is to say, okay, yeah, you could have more of that and more of that, but what about just being content, being able to sit down and say, yeah, I don't have maybe all the box ticked, but it's comfortable. I'm happy with what I have. It's doable for me. And I think a lot of people would see their stress reduce also when they're not always, because it's quite exhausting to always be looking for more, more of what, in the end.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, first of all, I would throw out here, if you would like to have a reduce your stress levels right away, throw out perfectionism. That just doesn't work, and perfectionism is the desire to keep control over things, and to a degree the fear that what I'm delivering is not good enough, or even I'm not good enough. So I gotta be perfect to be accepted, to be appreciated, right? So that can be under the surface. And it's on us to double check, is that what drives me to perfectionism? Because a lot of people actually put that as a badge of honor on themselves. Oh, you know what? I'm a perfectionist. And I say, well, then you're creating a lot of problems for yourself, right? Just doesn't work. Perfect does not exist. And what I offer in this case is, look for excellent. Look for something that is enough for you and for the job at hand, for example, if it's in a job environment, business environment. So that's much better, right? Look at what is again, then the North Star again is important. What is really important in your life? What is it? And we can make it, in fact, very, very easy, because it's our world seems to have become really, really super complex.
Yeah.
And I like to, pardon my language, cut through the crap and make it a bit easier, simplifying things, because that is so nice, when we don't have to work on 100,000 things at the same time. So what we all want is, in fact, to feel good. And what this good is in the eye of the beholder. For you, it's the contentment. For other people, it's happy. For other people, it's, I don't know, accomplished. Whatever the good feeling is doesn't really matter. That's what we strive for. Waking up in the morning, feeling good. No stress, none of these unwanted feelings, feeling good. So now, the question now is, of course, how do we achieve that? And this is why a lot of people strive for more. I want this more, particularly when it comes to possessions, money, etc. There are two reasons why they strive for that. The one reason is they're looking for this good feeling and hope that this more will give them the feeling, whatever they're after. And secondly, safety. Maybe that makes me even safer if I have more money on the on my account, more in the pension fund, blah blah blah, whatever. What we're also being told, you got to take care of that. That's so important, and I'm not denying that, right? Again, there's nothing wrong with looking in the future to a degree and looking at finding a good basis for financing our lives. Nothing wrong with that per se. It's just if we're always going for more to fill a hole, to get this good feeling, we're doing it the wrong way round again. Like when I said we're looking for safety in the wrong place, we're also looking for the good feeling in the wrong place, because it's not out there. It's not in the next house, not in the next car, not in the next holidays, and not in the next big salary. It's simply not, because everybody who's listening, or who's ever been in this situation of getting more will find, now I have it and I'm still not happy, or it only lasted for a very short period of time. So being able to create the contentment in the first place, the happiness, the whatever it is, funnily enough, often leads to suddenly having more without even striving for it, if that makes any sense to you. And one last thing I would like to add here is about stress. It's often we believe that we got to change the environment to reduce our stress. And yeah, sometimes this is justified. What I do find though is that stress happens inside of us and we create it. That's a bit of a bitter pill to swallow, because after all, whatever happens in the outside world is as it is. There might be tons of work. There might be a insecure financial situation of the organization. There might be relationship trouble. There might be whatever it is. And now it's on us how we respond to that. And we all have these, what I call triggers or buttons, that are pushed, and they have to do with how we grew up. This is all the patterns we've developed. And so stress is simply a reaction to what we consider as a threat. And if we master the triggers and this, what I call the power of response, suddenly our stress goes down without the outside parameters changing.
Yeah, we're taking a step back. I know I train myself on that because I tend to, especially when I'm mad, and it happens when usually I have issues with like phone companies recently, who are doing all kinds of things and not really checking on what you need and what you want, but are charging you anyways. So I get upset when unfair things happen, when it's out of your control and I want to fix it. So now I take a step back and I don't talk immediately, because if I know I tend to be very spontaneous in my response, but it might not be great the way it comes out. So now I push myself to take a step back. It's almost like I'm not going to answer right now, whether it's by email or by phone, just to let the emotions kind of fly through, and because otherwise it's going to be not so pleasant. So that's how I'm feeling emotions. Yeah.
That's very wise, because this is exactly what happens if we allow the emotion to be there. Hey, I'm not Zen all the time. There are things that trigger me and that annoy me. There's no doubt about that. It's gotten less, over the years because I practice it a lot. And still, there are things that really piss me off, to say it very, very clearly. And so it's looking at this and saying, yeah, I am pissed off about this now, right? And I accept that this is the case. And sometimes it's necessary to communicate it, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it simply doesn't matter. And if we have this pause, it can dissipate, really. So very wise. You're doing good there.
Yeah, and always, I think I've learned this from a few months ago, but always trying to look from a different angle. Because if you're usually we look at things from one angle, which is ours. So we think that we have it bad that day because of whatever situation, and we kind of lean onto that. So it makes us feel bad. But when we try to compare it to something else, like look at the person in Ukraine right now, they don't have a roof over their head. They don't even they have no place to stay, no food. What about this person compared to your issue right now? And that puts things a little bit into perspective, to always try to look at a different angle. I think sometimes we're a little bit spoiled also in our Western world.
Oh, we totally are. And this is really fair to do that. I invite to be a bit careful with that. It can help. On the other side, it's important that we allow ourselves to feel bad about something, even if it might be a luxury problem. It's like our emotions do have a reason. We might be in the position, like you just said, put it a bit into perspective, and still say, okay, I'm still feeling bad about this. Whatever the reason behind it is, then we can decide, does it really matter or not?
Or not, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, Claudia. I mean, so many great inputs today for sure. So I think where can we hear more about your program? I think I'll leave the link below. on your
Uh,
website, probably.
yes, there is a website. So this group program is open now, and in fact, as it's totally new, and I would like to reward every woman who comes in now until the end of June. There's the price is going to be extraordinarily low, and there's a couple of so compared to the regular price, and there are a few nice bonuses involved, and there's an application process behind. And it's on my website. The program is called Aligned, yeah, for a reason, because it's about alignment with ourselves, alignment with our vision, alignment with our desires, and who we really are, to really get into this situation of getting the life and the job that we really enjoy. So there's I will give you the link to publish, and there's all the information on the page, and there's a possibility to apply. Why do I do that? Because it's important for me to have a group of really committed people, and a group of women who where I see a good match, particularly for this first phase, let's say it this way, because this is going to be a program that is an ongoing thing. So it's not just a starting point and it will end eventually after I had this first group. After in July, women can come in on a constant basis, and the vision is to really build up this community of women who can long term also support each other.
That sounds great. Well, for sure, we'll post the link below the video so that people can find it. If they watch this as a replay, they can definitely learn more about it. I think it's great that you're doing this because a lot of women probably need it and will be happy to join and learn more about themselves along the way. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, there's just a few lies we've been told during our life, and it's what, it takes so long to do it on your own. I'm totally sure every woman will get there eventually, right? Finding out, oh my God, this didn't work for me. This didn't work for me, and I'm in my 50s now, and it makes so much more sense to find that out earlier in life.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
exactly. When I do my webinar, I tell people that all the roads will lead eventually to destination, and that's also to make everyone feel more confident about whatever they've gone through. They will get there, as you said. But it's true that the sooner the better. I mean, sometimes I look at my life and I'm like, why did it took you so long to get it? But so yeah, now I think there's definitely more resources. I mean, when I started out, there was no podcast, no there were books for sure, but there weren't as much support for sure.
Yeah, and this is an interesting aspect here. How do I get there? And I always believed that if I consume all the knowledge, that suddenly it would sink in, and that suddenly it would change things in my life. And I was very disillusioned because I realized it did not. I read hundreds of books, if not thousands of books. Probably started my personal development journey beginning of my 20s, and I learned a lot. There's no doubt about it. They are concepts. They are ideas, and the real transformation starts when we experience things. And this is here. This is in our body. And sometimes we require a bit of a helping hand here to be able to embody this knowledge. Because only if it moves from here to here, it will really show an impact in our life. Otherwise, it's simply a lot of ideas, and the frustration level increases when we scold ourselves for, I've read about this, why can't I do this? And that's yeah, and that's the reason. It's not anybody's fault. It's not your fault if you're listening now and said, I've read so many things, I know it in theory, and still it doesn't work. And that's the key, because it has not gone through the barrier from the head into the body, soul, heart, whatever you would like to address.
And some people might take longer to get it, as you said. I mean, you may have one experience, two experience, and you're like, why am I doing this again? I know where it's ending. But
I tell you what, this, if people are seeing this, this is a fantastic first step, because that means awareness. They're already watching themselves doing it. And when they know there's something, there's a chance to change it. And one of the questions I always get is like, but how? It's like, yes, I know it, but how? And yeah, this is definitely what people can find also in my in my social media presence, LinkedIn, for example. So I put a lot of content out there, and of course then in the course.
Wow, that's going to be great.
Yeah, and if I may say something which is really important for me, and it might be such a tiny little detail, I personally invite everybody not to become more efficient, because what I have noticed with a lot of people is they say, I've got so much to do, so little time, so how can I manage it? And if I'll take a step back, it's not about doing all these things quicker and in a more efficient way. It's rather about transforming on a deeper level so that you become effective. And that means doing the right things, not doing the things right. And that is super critical, because otherwise we keep running, because there will be more things piling up on us.
Wow, what a powerful way to end this streaming, for sure. I really like it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, way to write it down.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure as always.
Thanks. Yeah, it was great. And I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, talk to you soon.